She cried out in pain. "It's all right. I'm here. You're strong." In the muddy streets of Atlanta, the clouds had opened wide. The rain didn't fall gently, it slammed down hard, like drums being hit by angry skies. People rushed for cover under tin roofs and trees. But Grace had no roof. No tree. No one. She crouched near a pothole by the roadside, soaked to the skin, holding her belly that throbbed like a beating drum. She was 9 months pregnant, and today was the day. A torn plastic bag lay next to her. Inside were all her things: a rusted spoon, a faded photo of her mother, and a baby onesie she had picked up from the trash 2 days ago. She leaned her back against a cracked concrete wall. Her body trembled, not from the cold, but from the sharp pain that wrapped her stomach like a tight rope. And the saddest part? No one stopped. Motorcycle taxis zoomed past. A fruit seller dragged her cart around her. Even Mr. Ray, the preacher who had just shouted "Love your neighbor" from across the street, glanced at her, then turned away. "She's just another street woman," someone muttered. Grace hadn't always been homeless. She once wore decent shoes. She had a husband. A home. Hope. But hope doesn't feed you. When her husband died in a factory accident, her safety died too. Now she was alone, and the baby was coming. She groaned and dropped to her knees in the mud. Her hands shook. The rain mixed with her tears. "Please, anyone," she whispered. Just then, about 30 feet away, a black Range Rover slowed to a stop. The man inside didn't belong on this street. His watch cost more than the whole block. Even his silence seemed expensive. His name was Daniel. A billionaire in tech. Powerful. Untouchable. He had just come from a tense board meeting. One of his assistants had offered him an umbrella. He said no. Sometimes even rich men want to feel the rain. But what he saw through the windshield wasn't just rain. It was a woman in pain, and no one helping. His driver, Ben, looked confused. "Sir, should we drive around her?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He stared at the woman, her swollen belly, her shaking hands. Something inside him quietly broke, like a glass you don't notice is cracked until water starts leaking. "Stop the car," he said. The Range Rover door opened. Expensive leather met muddy road. People gasped. The man who owned half the city had stepped out, into the storm. Grace looked up, her eyes barely able to see. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Daniel took off his jacket, knelt beside her, and slid it under her back. "I called an ambulance," he said. "But we don't have time." His voice didn't sound like someone used to being in charge. It sounded like someone who, for once, was scared. 5 minutes passed like fire. Grace screamed again. Daniel held her hand. Ben brought towels from the car. The same fruit seller who had ignored her earlier suddenly returned with a blanket. Even Mr. Ray, the preacher, came back. But it was Daniel, the billionaire, who leaned close and said, "Push. I've got you. Don't give up now." And then it happened. A cry, not from the mother, but from the baby. Wet. Small. Angry at the world. She was born. Right into the billionaire's arms. Thunder rolled, but the baby's cry was louder. Grace fell back, weak and worn out. She opened her eyes and saw him, this rich stranger, holding her baby like she was treasure. She tried to speak. He shook his head. "You did everything," he said. "You're the strong one." The ambulance came 10 minutes later. But the real miracle had already happened. They rushed her to the hospital. The doctors didn't ask who she was. They just got to work. When the baby's heartbeat calmed and Grace finally fell asleep, Daniel stood outside the hospital room, still holding her torn plastic bag. It was wet and looked worthless, but to her, it was everything. Inside, he saw the baby onesie. Dirty, but carefully folded, like it meant the world. Daniel stared at it for a long time. He had signed million-dollar deals in suits sharp enough to cut. He had flown in private jets. Given speeches in glass towers. But nothing felt like this. Nothing had ever felt like this. Ben asked, "Should we go now, sir?" Daniel shook his head. No. He sat on the hard bench outside Grace's hospital room all night. When Grace woke up the next morning, she thought everything had been a dream. The baby, the man in the rain, the jacket under her back, the voice that said, "Push." But then she looked toward the corner of the room and saw a new blue baby blanket, some diapers, and a warm flask of tea. Nina, the nurse, walked in. "The man who brought you, he left this." Grace grabbed the blanket. It wasn't just soft, it felt safe. She pressed it to her cheek like a little child. Nina smiled. "You and your baby are safe now. For 3 days. After that, the bed will be needed." 3 days. That was all she had. Meanwhile, Daniel had returned to his big mansion. It had 12 rooms, and no warmth. But he couldn't stop thinking about her. He remembered her eyes. Not full of fear, but full of fight. Even when she was bleeding and shaking, she didn't beg. She just kept going. He thought about his mother. That same strength. A woman who raised him with nothing but courage in her eyes. He sat at his marble dining table. The food was untouched. He whispered, "I can't walk away." He didn't realize it yet, but something inside him had already changed. The next morning, he came back. Grace was sitting on the hospital bed, holding her baby. She looked surprised, confused, even a little scared. "You again?" she asked softly. Daniel smiled. "You look better." She looked away. "They said I have 2 more days." "Not anymore," he said. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I talked to the hospital director. Your bills are paid. You can stay until you're strong enough." She cut in. "Why?" "Because no one else did." Grace didn't cry. She was beyond tears. But her lips trembled. She nodded once. "Thank you." He stepped forward gently. "And your baby, what's her name?" She looked down. "Hope," she whispered. "It means, we are enough." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He nodded, and walked out. But his mind stayed in the room. He kept thinking. Hope. They were enough. But he could still give them more. A week went by. Then another. Grace could walk now. She looked stronger. Brighter. Little Hope cried loud, laughed soft, and wrapped her tiny fingers around her mama's thumb like she never wanted to let go. The nurses at the hospital started calling Grace the Miracle Mama. But Grace knew miracles didn't last forever. She had no job. No family left. No place to go once the hospital bed was needed. She was healing on the outside, but still broken inside. One morning, she stepped outside for air. And there he was. Daniel, in a plain shirt. No driver. No crowd. Just him. He leaned against his car, holding a small brown envelope. "I want to show you something," he said. She hesitated. "Why?" "Because I can't stop thinking about that day." She looked down at Hope in her arms. Then nodded. They drove slowly. Not into the city, but toward the edge of Atlanta. He stopped outside an old dusty building. "This was my mom's orphanage," he said. "She raised me here. Fed 20 kids with nothing but cornmeal and prayers." Grace looked around. The building was quiet. The windows broken. A rusty swing hanging still. "I fund it every year, but no one runs it anymore. No one dares." He looked at her. "I want you to run it." She froze. "Me? You're strong. You've lived through pain, and you didn't break." She looked away. "I'm just a woman who gave birth in the rain." He stepped closer. "No. You're a woman who gave life during the storm." She blinked, trying not to cry. "You'll have a place to stay here. A job. A new path." Her knees nearly gave out. Hope shifted in her arms. Grace whispered, "But what do you want in return?" He smiled kindly. "Just promise me she grows up knowing that love is real." That night, Grace stood in the small kitchen of the orphanage. She boiled water, washed bottles, cleaned away cobwebs. She felt something she hadn't in years, a beginning. Hope cooed in the corner. Daniel sat on the floor, playing peekaboo with her. Grace watched from behind the doorway. And for just a moment, she let herself believe something new. That maybe, she wasn't a burden. Maybe, she was home. Days turned into weeks. Grace started running the orphanage like she was born to do it. She cleaned, cooked, laughed, hugged children who hadn't smiled in months. People in the town began whispering, "Who's that woman with fire in her heart?" Daniel kept coming back. Sometimes with diapers. Sometimes with books. Sometimes with nothing at all. Just himself. And time. With nothing, just himself and time, Hope began to know him. She smiled bigger when he came into the room. She cried less when he held her. One evening, under a mango tree behind the orphanage, Grace sat beside Daniel. Hope slept on her chest. "Why me?" she asked again. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Maybe because I saw myself in your quiet." Grace didn't answer. She just looked up at the stars. But not all stars lead you home. One Sunday afternoon, while the kids played, a woman showed up at the orphanage gate. Her heels were too high for the dusty ground, her perfume too strong for the air. Grace walked out to meet her. The woman raised an eyebrow. "You must be her." "The project," she smirked. "The rescue." "I'm sorry, who are you?" "I'm Daniel's fiancée." Silence. It cracked something inside Grace's chest. The woman laughed. "Don't act shocked. You didn't really think a man like him helped you just for kindness, did you?" Grace said nothing. The woman leaned in closer. "Enjoy this little fairy tale while it lasts." Then she walked away, leaving her perfume in the wind like poison. That night, Grace didn't eat. She watched Hope sleep and whispered, "Don't grow up thinking everyone who's kind belongs to you." The next morning, she packed her bag, just like she did when her husband died, just like she did when the streets became her home. She left a note for Daniel. "Thank you for everything. But I can't be anyone's project." Then she disappeared. When Daniel came later that day, the orphanage felt too quiet. Grace was gone. Hope was gone. Only the letter remained. He read it once. Then again. Then sat on the cold cement floor, head in his hands. He searched for her everywhere, old shelters, clinics, even that rainy road where it all began. But Grace was gone. And Hope too. He kept replaying everything, her smile, her silence, all the things he never said. That she wasn't just someone he helped. She was someone he needed. Night after night, he sat in his car outside the orphanage, waiting. Hoping. But hope, like rain, doesn't always fall where you need it. One evening, he visited his mother's grave. He stood under the old tree, hands in his pockets, cold wind behind him. He whispered, "Mama, I think I broke something I didn't know how to hold." Behind him, a soft voice said, "Then learn how to hold it properly." He turned. Grace was standing there. Hope wrapped on her back. Her eyes steady. Her chin lifted. "I came here," she said, "because I needed to ask your mother if I belonged in your story. Or if I was just a chapter you'd forget." He walked toward her slowly, like approaching fire. "You're not a chapter," he said. "You're the whole damn book." She didn't smile, at least not yet. "But you were engaged," she said. "Was," he replied. "I ended it the day I saw she never looked at me the way you do when you're mad." Finally, a tear rolled down her cheek. "I didn't want saving," she whispered. "I just wanted to be seen." He stepped forward and gently placed his forehead against hers. "And I see you, Grace. I see you." They got married right in that same orphanage, where she had once cleaned floors on her knees. Hope was their flower girl. She could barely walk, holding a petal in each little hand. Children from the town danced barefoot. Aunties sang loud. The air smelled like roasted meat. And Hope. When someone asked Grace why she said yes, she answered, "Because the man who gave me a jacket in the rain never let go of my hand, even after the storm." And when someone asked Daniel why he fell in love, he said, "She gave birth in a storm and still held her baby like the sun was shining." In Atlanta, under the same sky where it all started, a woman once lost to the streets built a home. Not just for her daughter, but for dozens of children who had never had one. And the man who once thought he had everything, finally learned what real wealth was. It wasn't silence. It wasn't fancy suits. It wasn't power. It was love, born in the rain.